In the cloud. Okay. Okay, so just to remind everybody, we are recording. So the audio, video, and the chat history is being recorded. And at this time, we'll call the April Public Works and Capital Improvement Committee to order. It is 4:01 p.m. Okay, so did everybody get a chance to take a look at the minutes that Brian put together?
Yes, and I'll motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion. I did read them. Again, I apologize for not being at the meeting, but I was in the emergency room with my dad.
Yeah, you never have to apologize for that.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, so motion made and seconded to adopt. Is there any discussion, deletion, changes, additions? Hearing none. Well, I guess we'll do this by roll call. So Alderwoman Gould,
Yes,
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
and the chair, Joe DeLucia, votes yes. And because I didn't state it earlier, all three members of the committee are present. Okay, moving on. Citizen comment. There are no citizens in the meeting, but for formality, we'll say, are there any citizens that would like to make a comment to the committee today? Are there any citizens that would like to make a comment to the committee today? Are there any citizens that would like to make a comment to the committee today? Hearing none, all citizen comment period closed. On to item number 4, old business. Item A, Public Works project updates. Take it away, Mr. McLaughlin.
Okay, the Sherman Street Bridge project is moving on schedule, and the 90% plans were submitted by the consultant to the state earlier this month, and which is on schedule. So things should be good for a construction a year from now, basically. The annual paving, we had awarded the project to Pasturak again this year. He was a low bidder, and they're going to be starting the last week in April up on, they were going to actually do Curtis Street and Wilderness Drive first. We're still working on catch basin tops up on like Blueberry in that neighborhood up there, which will be next after the initial, bit, once we get all the catch basin tops done up there. So for Franklin Square Roundabout, that, we had awarded that, and they're going to start early May. Right now, Public Utilities, they had some gas line work to do right in the middle, right, that they're working on this. They started last week. It's going to take them about 3 weeks or 3 to 4 weeks. So it might delay our contractor by a week or so, but he's not overly concerned about that. And he thinks he can get the job done well before the 120-day time limit, which would put it like the end of August, but he thinks he can get it done significantly quicker than that. New London Turnpike, the Transportation Alternative Project, the north end of that, we received the proposals from the consultants. There were 10 proposals. We're evaluating those now. Brian, myself, and the assistant city planner are evaluating those and going to develop a short list and then have interviews. We're going through a quality-based selection process according to the DOT guidelines, and so we don't start talking about price, about scope, specific man hours until after we come up with our preferred consultant. So that's in the process. The sidewalk project on Boswell Ave, the Community Development Block Grant project, that's gonna also be starting up that last week of April, next week, basically. The Granite Mill building is basically a lot hasn't happened because they were working on their bracing plan. we were supposed to have gotten, I thought we were gonna get that last week. We didn't get that yet, but as soon as we get it, we'll evaluate that, and then so the contractor can then order the materials for the bracing and then move forward with that. They have until the end of June to complete that work. West Stain,
Mel's doing that work, right?
yes, yep.
Okay.
He got off to a gangbuster
Just to
start, and
Yeah,
then slowed down a little bit, but he's still pretty confident. I mean, it takes some time to do the to get the plans prepared for the bracing and then to order that, but should be done on, on schedule. So that's, that's kind of where we're going with our projects currently. We're going to also be bidding some sidewalk ramps down on North Main Street, where we did the paving of in Greenville, where we did all those side streets last year paving. Some of the, the handicap ramps aren't too great a shape, so we're going to be replacing probably a dozen of those in the next month or two. That'll be going out to bid here shortly. We're going to use we're going to use bond funds for that work.
Okay.
Our bond fund, speaking of bond funds, our bond fund status is still pretty healthy. We haven't, it was we didn't get quite as much done paving last year. We're kind of been waiting on NPU to get some of the roads ready. So, we still have a good balance. We haven't even actually started into that last $5 million bond issue yet.
Okay.
So that's where we stand with the projects. If there's any questions.
Yeah, members have questions?
I do, please.
Go right ahead.
I went by Laurel Hill Fire Department, and that retaining wall, is that considered finished? Because I think it's half of it. It looks to me like it's been halfway done and the other half needs to be completed. That does not look to me like it's been finished. So, but I don't know what the scope of the work was.
That was the scope of the work. It was done completely. That's basically bedrock that's there on the, that's beyond where the wall was built. There was no, I'm pretty sure, I don't know, Brian was really following that closer than I was, but I'm quite sure there was no wall really right there. The wall that was removed was replaced, I think. And what's left there is basically a rock face of bedrock that is hard, stable, and it's not going, not going anywhere, not going to be sloughing off or collapsing. He used to, he pulled everything that was loose off of it. It may not look the best, but it is structurally sound.
Okay, all right. If you say so, that's great. I was just looking at it from a layman's eye. It looked like, if we had a heavy rainfall, when you're looking at the wall, the right-hand side,
Right.
farther away from the building, looks like it's gonna just, be pouring down mud into the street.
Yeah, I don't think that, but I know what was contracted for was completed.
Okay,
I can take another look at it. I haven't seen it in a month or so.
yeah, maybe somebody should just take a ride by and take a look at it and
Yeah,
check on it.
okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? No? All right, so on that project, Stacy, I went by there, I saw the same thing you did. It looked like, it feels like it's unfinished when you look at it. And you can see, all right, that, he did pull down whatever growth was on there, soil that was on there, loose rocks have all been pulled off of that ledge or bedrock outcropping. But the wall looks beautiful, but it just doesn't look like it's done being terminated into the outcropping, right? It seems like there's a gap there and so on and so forth. And again, this is not criticism or critique. I just wondered if maybe small stones were going to be fitted in that gap, to kind of like tie it in so that when you look at it, it doesn't look like that it doesn't look unfinished. And the drainage piece, I didn't see the spec, and I leave that up to you guys, but is there drainage behind that? Because I think that Stacy raises a valid concern, is like, okay, if water's gonna cascade from the top down, is there gonna be a washout issue behind that wall?
Well, not the wall itself. There's stone behind the wall, and then it's a loose laid stone, so the water can run through the wall. I'm
Okay.
not sure to the right of the wall. I don't think there's anything provided there. That's what I'll look at.
Yeah, but
I just think it's worth taking a ride by just to make sure, because, like Joe said, and I said, it sort of looks like somebody started this project, got halfway done and said, okay, phew, I'll come back in September and I'll finish the rest.
right, or got all the way done and just didn't do like I said, fitting in the stone so it looks pretty. Like you said, structurally, I'm sure that it is perfect from a structural standpoint. Aesthetically, it looks a little unfinished. But again, just if you take a peek at it and see what you think, defer to your expertise, Brian's expertise, and obviously what was in the contract. I don't want to call the vendor back, all right, if they lived up to the spec in the contract.
I'm sure, I know, because I had that discussion with Brian. The length that he said he was going to build, he rebuilt. It's beyond. Then they like cleaned off the rock beyond that, but he built the X amount of feet that he said he was going to build. And
right. Well, and I would imagine, not to belabor the point, but I would imagine that if we wanted it all to feel uniform and tied back in, that would have increased the scope by a lot, because now you're talking about breaking up some of that bedrock in there, right? Drilling it, whatever, I would hate to say blasting that close to a building, right? Or any of that stuff. So, you have to kind of pick your battles a little bit too. As long, I think, and I think Stacy and Darrell would agree, as long as it's going to stay put, right, and then
yeah, that's the way I thought it was, and I'll just verify that.
Yeah, right. But yeah, well, we've made all the points. I have a couple other questions on what do you mean when you say that that project is going to have quality-based selection?
That's what the DOT process is for selecting a consultant, just like we do on the federal local bridge, because we're getting 80% federal highway funding for this TAP, Transportation Alternative Project, and they are going to cover the design costs. We have to go through the quality-based selection process. It's a specified process that the DOT uses, coming down from the Federal Highway Administration, I'm sure.
And this is the process that's used to select who will do the work?
Yes, yeah.
And
We put a request for proposals out, and they give us their qualification. I mean, for qualifications, not for proposals. They give us their qualifications. We go through their qualifications, looking at who had, the similar projects that were successful and their references. And then we pick the top 5, at least a minimum of 5 to interview, which may be via Zoom at this point in time, or maybe live, I'm not sure. But anyway, we have to pick at least 5 to interview. Then we rate those on what we perceive as a quality based process based on past work and their relevant experience. And then once the people, we rate those, then we just, whoever comes up with the highest score is the preferred consultant. And we then we negotiate with them. We get a man-hour estimate of how many man-hours they see it. We assign, we review that, agree to man-hours, and then they put their billable rates into that, and their fringe FB&O into that and come up with a fee for that work.
Right, so it sounds to me, it's very much like the process we're using in the building committee to select, to select the design professional to guide us through the master plan and all the strategic planning, right? We're looking
Yeah,
at
very. Yep.
qualification. So it's really looking at qualifications first
Yep.
and talking about money last
Yes.
versus just talking about money on the front end. And then,
Yeah, there's, because we're getting design funds. When I submitted the application originally, we weren't asking for design funds, and then they came back, the DOC said, well, don't you want design funds for the design of it? And it's like, sure, if you want to, if that's available. So now we have to, play by their rules, essentially, just like you do with the state education department.
Yep, and I like it. And then one last thing, and I know I got the email. I know Pat got the email because he responded. I think Darrell and Stacy, I mean, it might have been everybody in the council got the email about the Upper Falls Dam, right? Because we talked about the idea of doing a study to talk about removing that dam, right? And I just would like you, as part of as a piece of the Sherman Street Bridge project, just for this video recording, summarize what you responded in that email about how that bridge study ties into the Sherman Street Bridge project.
Yeah, well, so as part of the Sherman Street Bridge replacement project, we started looking at the dam removal, and the dam removal, based on very early numbers, it looked like it was going to have an even greater impact on the removal of the dam may have an even greater impact on the flood elevation at the bridge location. What the final studies came down to is that it was going to have by removal of the dam, we were going to have about a 1.5 foot lowering of the flood waters at the bridge itself. So the DOT, and basically said, well, and the Federal Highway Administration advised them, they were talking to the Federal Highway Administration, and they said, well, our bridge project is not going to pay for the dam removal because it's not a great enough benefit, and it's not direct, it's not part of the, they have trouble paying for something, 100 feet of extra pavement on the edge of the roadway connecting. But something like 1,200 feet downstream on the river, they did not want to fund. So they didn't disagree with the merits of it. Would have some impact on the flooding at the bridge location, but not enough to warrant, I don't know how much, even if it had been 4 feet, I'm not sure the Federal Highway Administration would have went along with the removal of the dam just because it was so far away from the bridge itself. But it does have an impact on that flood elevation, and it provides virtually no flood storage because it is basically a passover. Mm-hmm. Usually, even if the dam was in a low flow condition, it doesn't take long at all to fill that up. It fills up in an hour, and then all of a sudden the water's rushing over the top, and there's really just no storage. So it doesn't really provide flood storage, as that gentleman, the citizen that wrote the email, was suggesting. And I tried to make that clear that it really doesn't provide flood storage. Mm-hmm. But it does impact the flooding, elevation of the water there.
And as I understand it, the competing issue, right, is that when the river is at flood stage in a very short amount of time, because of the limited amount of freeboard between the normal level of the river and the bottom of the bridge, right, that fills up very quickly when we have flood conditions, high amounts of rain and so on and so forth. And now you've got water pushing laterally on all the structures of the bridge, which is a lot of force, right?
Yeah.
So you know, I got a lot of thoughts on this, but I guess my biggest challenge is the fact that we do not control the water, the storage behind the bridge. I mean, behind the dam, right?
Upstream
We
of the
don't, right? We
Yeah.
don't have functioning equipment there that, you know, we could raise and lower, and you know, if we know we have a flood event on our horizon, open the floodgate, so to speak, to coin, you know, co-opt the term, right? And lower the water and let it flow out of there more quickly. It essentially flows at its own will, because there are no controls, as I understand it. I may not be
Right.
completely correct about that.
But there is, yeah, you're correct. There is no controls. There is an opening in the dam about 3 feet by 4 feet,
Yep.
and that's open all the time.
Yep.
But yeah, so I mean, we couldn't, even if we wanted to. I mean, if it was closed and then you open it up, it takes quite a while to drain it with the low flow, even, you know, with any kind of flow. But that would even if it was down to its lowest level and we shut it, or opened, you know, it provides the volume upstream of the dam to store water is very small compared to the, you know, the high flows of the Yantic River. It would fill up like almost, you know, in an hour or so.
Yeah, right. So the long and the short of it is that we're not going to get any federal or state money to disassemble the dam.
Well, we have put in an application for monies to start that, to study the process and come up with a plan for it.
Yep.
But we haven't heard back. It's going to take another few months before we hear back from FEMA what funding was approved and what funding wasn't approved.
Okay.
So we're waiting for that. If funding is approved for it, then we would have to have some public, you know, meetings about that, you know, informing people.
Right. Yeah, and that was my last question, and I believe you mentioned it in one of your email responses, that it's not something that we would just do. Right. There is a whole process behind this where the community gets to weigh in, one way or the other.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you for that.
And I think everybody on this committee was on that email, I believe. I don't, you know.
Yeah, I thought so. I just didn't click on it before I opened up the meeting. All right, moving on to item B, property disposition.
So I wasn't sure if Deanna was going to be able to join us or not, but we may have some changes to what we want to do with 36 Huntington Ave. Deanna was thinking possibly, you know, we were both thinking, because now the real estate market is so good, it's possible we might be able to get somebody that would agree to fix it up, but we can't. She doesn't think the way you know, Dale Plummer and Chippo is looking at it, we probably cannot just sell it without any kind of restrictions on it. It would have to be that they would have to work with Chippo and repair the property or something like that. So anyway, I think we don't have to act on that today. It's been sitting there for quite a while.
Yeah. But this is the one that is in really tough shape and very close to the road, right?
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yeah, but I guess, I don't know. She thinks it would be hard to get permission to demolish it because it does have some historic significance, I guess. But
Suppose it's a historic significance.
Right. So Stacy might know a little. I guess the Dangerous Building Committee had looked at it at one point, and they thought it was so far gone they didn't want
Right, we didn't want to touch it. You know, it's so close to the road. It's a little tiny lot. It would, you know, I don't know what somebody would want to put there, and you know, it wasn't worth the effort to do anything with that property. But Deanna and I both knew that we were going to have trouble, you know, trying to get anything done with Dale on the case that it could have been a historic, it was a barn at one time.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been years ago a house, but it's an old barn, the whole,
The roof, yeah, it's collapsing.
the roof is collapsing. It's 1,500 square feet on a 0.28 acres.
Hmm.
And I just,
So I'm not sure what the, if we'll, I
Yeah.
guess it'll be another historic ruin.
that may be a good description of what it is. Yeah, it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house at one time, and we've owned it since 2017.
Oh. Well, as you said, Pat, there's not something that we need to act on, and there will be a process, and if the advocates for keeping it in place, want to pursue that, then there's a process for that too, right? So.
Yeah, I guess the city could try to get a demolition permit for it, maybe.
Well, I think that's what Dangerous Buildings recommended, that it just be demoed before it falls into the road and becomes a huge liability.
Yeah, that's sort of.
Yeah, I guess somebody would have to make some decision, if the state would appeal, yeah, so I'll look into
Would get
that.
involved.
I'll
So
look into what we got to do to try to, get a permit to demolish it.
yeah, I think that's, the way to go right now.
Yeah, well, and I would also say that if if folks believe that the building is somewhat historically significant, then present your case, right? Come to us and tell us why, and we can consider that. But okay, again, right now it seems like the hazard outweighs the benefit of trying to keep it.
Yeah, on Dale's behalf, I think his, I think he tried, he had trouble getting into City Hall because the city clerk's office was closed and things last summer, and it still is limited access, I think, as far as doing research. So I think that the pandemic kind of slowed him down more.
Right, but to try to convert this, it's 928 square feet of living area,
Mm-hmm.
Built in 1810. But it's a hot mess.
But that's, other than that, I don't think there's a lot of things to discuss under property disposition.
Okay, and you'll follow up with Deanna on
Yeah.
that one particular building. Okay. Stacy, any other buildings that are on our horizon?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, thank you. All right, then moving on to item C, Public Works vehicular concerns. I didn't have anything on the agenda, but Darrell raised an issue that he wanted to discuss, so go right ahead.
So I will start by saying, this one, I believe it's gonna take more than just this committee to address it. So several residents that live along, I believe that's North Main Street, near the DVG restaurant, and the package store right there. It's the intersection from Central Ave to North Main Street. Have had some concerns for some time with the level of speed, but also the issue of seeing around that corner of Central Ave oncoming traffic, but also just the speeding and the signage on the North Main side. Have had some concerns. They've had several vehicles crashed into and totaled over the course of the last 6 to 8 months. And really, I think one of the, I reached back out to ask several of them what they're looking for. And I think for some of them, it's more signage. I did do some driving several days by. I know they have a speed limit sign there, but something of, slowing down, at night, I think, is the bigger concern. Traffic is whizzing by, and the restaurant is becoming busy now that things are opening back up. You have people, of course, parking because you have that restaurant, the package store, some apartments areas, and then it's the 86th bar. So it is becoming a busy strip again. And the issue is where the restaurant is on the North Main, near the North Main and Central Ave intersection. Cars are parking on both sides of that road, which makes it hard for anyone turning from the Central Ave intersection area onto the North Main straightaway. They can't see that traffic there. But also, if they're speeding around that corner higher than the 25-mile-an-hour rate, which is very common, it could cause some accidents, and it has caused some accidents or whatnot. And I can, go back. I remember I probably 2012, 2013. I had a close friend that going around that corner ended up in someone's house. The house on the corner as you're coming around that corner on North Main, in their vehicle ended up in a corner in the basement. So for them, it's just a concern of speeding and the site issue from the Central Ave area of individuals trying to get on. So either a sign that says slowing down sign or something. I know the speed limit sign is there, but something kind of warning people more of the speeding is an issue. And I know it's a state road, so that's the other piece to it. So that's why I figured I'd bring it up here, and we, of course, like all the others, look at the back channels of what needs to get done to possibly remedy some of the situation.
So, yeah.
That has always been a tough intersection
Mhm.
because of the very tight angle at which those two streets meet, the
Correct.
fact that there's a change in grade,
Yep.
and we do have elevated speeds, in that area. It's but that has been going back. I worked the east side on second shift for 6 months straight, and I was at accidents there often.
So you're talking about the northerly intersection.
North end, yeah.
Which
Yep, the north
the
end.
south, the both are difficult intersections,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on the south end, down by South Golden Street,
Correct.
it seems like because the stop sign is on North Main Street,
Correct.
and you have that flat area before the wall starts, you can get out there and still stay behind the stop line and see back towards St. Mary's well enough to safely pull out, although you're still looking, you're still looking back 120 degrees while you still have traffic coming at you right from Burnham Square. That one's a little tough, but it's marginally better than on the other end, right? Because
maybe
of the business that's there, the number of cars that are parked, as you said, on both sides of the road. There's a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like the parking is one thing we should. Well, we'll look at the whole thing, but the parking, it sounds like could be a major contributing factor.
Correct. Well, and the other issue is so it's not so much like if you're coming up from the North Main way. It's really it's the parking on both sides of the street is very narrow because of the lining and whatnot. But it's those apartments there, so it's kind of where they have to park. But I know at one time there was a lot of vehicles parking along the other side of the road, so it makes it hard for those on Central Ave looking over. But I think the other big piece, like Joe is explaining, is the speed. So there is a stop sign on the other side, and it has gotten better because you can kind of look over the little hump there to see what's coming down that hill. Whereas on the other side, that is the fast side. So the slower side has the stop sign, and there's a competing traffic going both ways for
North Main.
North Main.
Yeah.
So I understand, I said part of it is looking at signage and whatnot, but going through the proper steps, because I did not know at the time if we need to contact the state DOT, because that is they maintain, of course, that portion of the road and whatnot, about signage and whatnot. But I figured I'd bring it up here because this would be the first channel of many things that we've done in the past.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll talk to Chief Daly about it too, and start with some accident history and then reaching out to the DOT too.
And one other thing I've noticed when I've driven through there, excuse me, is that, so there's that old, what used to be a gas station on the point, right? It's a service station, right? They do automotive repairs, right? On the north, so let's see, so that would be on the west side of North Main Street, right? Because they have the retaining wall for the upper part that's even with Central Avenue. And then you have the drop at the retaining wall, and then you have another area, probably just about a car wide, and they're putting cars in there. There was a boat down in there. It looks like, I don't know if the wall collapsed or if somebody dumped a truckload of dirt off of the edge of the wall down below, right? And all of those things are causing that to get narrower. And because on that end, because you're stopping, if you're going north, because you're stopping on Central Avenue, you actually have an advantage because you're at a higher grade than the traffic on North Main Street when you look to your right. Okay, but you still got to look back on maybe 120 or 130 degrees. Okay, but again, now you have all that parking and so on and so forth. It's difficult to separate the wheat from the thatch, so to speak. What's a car in traffic and what's a car that's just sitting there, and what, so on and so forth. But again, it's a matter of, all right, so who actually owns that property? Because if that property actually belongs to that service station, and they're not physically on the roadway, they can put things there, right?
Yeah, we had an icing issue back there like two years ago or so.
Right. I think that, and that was because the culvert and the spillway that goes down into the river, but alongside the package store was collapsed, right? The storm drain was collapsed. So, and then water coming off the hill from the apartments that are right through. I believe that's one of our police officers' property. His whole property got wet, and then it went across the road. And I think, because it looks like there's been some patching there, I think the state may have corrected it to get the water, into a culvert and running underground, right?
They did it. That's why there was 2 apartments there originally, and the 2 apartments they demolished or got rid of and did some work so that the water goes directly across, because you have a huge flooding area along that area right there. So that, of course, was another big issue.
Right. Well, so Pat, you said you'll speak to the chief of police, right? And
start there, yeah.
Exactly. And
And
okay.
The only other one, and I know we got the email, I think it was yesterday, it might have been yesterday, is, I think it's McKinley.
Yeah.
A woman living on McKinley Ave Extension,
Yeah.
concerns about the traffic on Joseph Perkins, Joseph Perkins and.
Well, it's McKinley Avenue from a Ross Adult Daycare up to the bottom of Reynolds Road, and student parking. Not that has anything to do with the students, but I'm just saying student parking at NFA, and that's where Joseph Perkins Road comes in. I saw that email today, and I intend to have a conversation with the police chief about that, because that's more of an enforcement issue than a public works issue. I mean, that's it's straight and it's wide and it's relatively flat, right? I mean, and so, you can see people wanting to stomp on it right there as they leave that intersection. But
my other question that I have is, I remember back in the day when I was in high school, this is 2010, 2009, there was a stop sign at near where Joseph Perkins comes on to senior parking lot. There was
Yeah.
a stop sign there on the road. And then of course it's no longer there. It's a straightaway. So what happened that they got rid of the sign there?
When they
I know they
revamped
have one in the parking lot, but there was one on the road as well always
Yeah.
until after.
at the bottom of Reynolds Road, at the intersection of Joseph Perkins Road,
Correct.
right, there was a stop sign. You're absolutely right. And they got rid of it when they made Joseph Perkins Road the exit onto McKinley Avenue Extension. It became one way. So you cannot make the right turn onto Joseph Perkins Road anymore. And that was part of all of the improvements and adding that entrance into the faculty parking at NFA at the football field level, right? And improvements on all of that. That sign went away. I don't know what the rationale was, but that's when it happened, and that's how that came about.
Because
And that's the traffic going. That's the traffic going in the other direction. Absolutely right. You come on that last corner where you're driving by student parking. There's no stop sign. Interestingly enough, this is muscle memory for you. I pump the brakes at that telephone pole every single time because I'm so used to stopping at that stop sign where when that was a stop sign.
Correct.
Okay, I still pump the brakes. Okay, but no, if people are just zipping through in that direction as well, maybe causing people to have to stop there again. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's a discussion that we could have.
Because I understood the three-way. I know that's something that probably is absolutely out the question, of course.
Mhm.
But I'm just thinking that could possibly slow down some of the traffic concerns with speeding. Because I'm not so much worried about those leaving the senior parking lot. It's coming down that hill, winding through that road and just continuing to go. That may help with some of it. Because you already have a stop sign at Joseph Perkins. So I think maybe that additional one there would help with some of it, but it's just a thought. I do remember there was a stop sign there, and then when the redesign happened, it went away. So,
Well, I mean, and we can, we can certainly explore that and have that conversation. Not to be negative, but well, I'm just going to say it. We're having difficulty getting people to stop at red lights with opposing traffic crossing the intersections. Okay, right? So this is so having I mean, we put a stop sign there, and I'm not saying that I'm not ordering that we should. I'm saying if we do, okay, it still becomes an enforcement issue.
absolutely.
Right. So. So Pat, do you want to explore that with the chief as well? And
Yeah, I guess I don't know if I saw. I don't think I was on that email that you're referring to. I'm not sure.
She may
I'll
have
forward it to you. Yeah, I'll forward it to you.
as a citizen concern. And
Yeah,
I've been busy today, so I didn't have a chance to forward it, but I was reading it. So I figured instead of waiting a whole month to respond to her again, I'd bring it up, but I'll forward it to you and Stacy after the meeting.
Thank you.
okay. All right. So anything else under Public Works vehicular concerns? No? Okay.
Maybe I'll add that. So I had a study done on the removal of the signals on Willow Street, the one with Chestnut Street and the one with Franklin Street. So we've got a three-way stop condition there. The signals are kind of redundant to the stops, and now the equipment's getting older, and it's either get to the point where it's got to be replaced or removed. So I had a study done, and it'll be sufficient to just have stop control there, and we can remove those overhead signals. So, and the police chief is in concurrence with that. So that's going to be happening in the near future.
So, and so Chestnut and Willow as well, and get rid of that signal at the parking lot there, right? And just put in a four-way stop.
Yeah.
And it would be a four-way stop.
Well, it's a three-way.
Three-way.
Because one of them's one way away.
Oh, no. So Well, because you said Willow and Chestnut, and then you said Willow and Franklin. So Franklin, I get, is a three-way stop right now,
Yeah,
and there's both stop signs and flashing red lights.
yes,
The signals will go.
yeah.
I'm saying next intersection towards City Hall, Willow and Chestnut, it's flashing red. Are we gonna turn that into just a four-way stop with stop signs and take the signal out as well?
That'll be a three-way stop as well, because one of the legs of that heading Chestnut Street South, there's nobody coming out of that. It's one way.
Right,
No,
from Chestnut to
southbound.
Bath. It's only one way,
Yeah. it's
three-way
only-
stop.
So it'll be a three-way stop, and we'll have to put stop signs up and remove the overhead signal.
Well, and I think it, I actually kind of like it. I think it also will aesthetically, it'll be something that aesthetically uplifts that area, with getting rid of that those lighting structures.
Yeah.
I think it's something that will kind of, so I like the idea.
Yeah, great. Again, we want things to, we want things to be a little bit more attractive, right? And those aged, signals that are just standing there day after day after day, flashing red, it's like, take them down, I totally agree. Yeah. Okay.
We just needed a study to say, yeah, it's appropriate.
Yeah, everything
No.
requires a study. Somebody's got to sign off, right? Okay. All right, anything else on the traffic issues? Okay, great. We do not have anything under new business in today's agenda. How about other business? Anybody have anything that we haven't discussed yet? Take that as a no. All right, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
And seconded, all those in favor? Aye.
aye.
All right, we are adjourned. It is 4:47 PM. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Good to see you again,
Nice to see
I'll miss you
Nicole.
guys.
She's in the
And
car.
Stacy.
right?
You're taking notes in the car, Nicole. You're
It
love
wasn't-
multitasking.
I was sitting outside, but I couldn't hear you guys because it was in my, like, it was still hooked up to my Bluetooth in my car when I drove home. So I'm like, I gotta go back and sit in the car now.
Go.
At least it's a nicer day.
But yeah,
today.
I'll miss
Right.
you guys.
That's problem solving right there. Finding the
Exactly,
workaround.
yeah. Yep.
All right,
There we
folks,
go.
thanks again.
All
And
right.
Bye-bye.
hopefully you're, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye, Stacy.